Hold on.
Why?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. And it is now time for Miss Kristin to talk about compliance and all those things that you need to get
Okay.
done so that you can get paid. And I think that's a very important thing for all of us. And she's going to highlight some areas that she sees and some things that she looks at. So, Kristin, you got it, kiddo.
All right. Thank you, Barry. All right. Hi, everyone. I think I've met most of you on here, so that's exciting. But yep, we're just going to go over compliance today. And I did make a PowerPoint, so I'm going to share that. There we go. And that changed everything. Can everyone see it? Uh-oh, Kate. Why is this all messed up? Hold on. Why is it like click the present button right there? There you go.
Kristin, is that really 362 sides?
No. Oh no. Why?
Okay, I'm just poking.
No. Barry, I'm afraid I'm not even gonna go long enough. All right, so here we go. Compliance 101. So I'm just going to start off with saying this is going to be very basic. I'm going to go over what we are looking to see in command when we're going through it. It's either me or Anita who is, approving or returning them. And I know some of you don't like me when we return them, but it is for your benefit, and we're just trying to make sure that it is good. So here we go. So first of all, I wanted to ask, does anyone know why we need compliance? Why are we so strict on this? Besides Barry. Hold on.
So we don't get fined by the state?
So that's part of it, yeah. This thing keeps getting in my way. There we go. We use compliance because if you get audited, you can, every time I click, Kate, this is so dumb. When you get audited, it's going to save your butt if you have the right documents in there. And it also is that you have a sound contract. So you are helping your clients if your compliance is on track and good. And I also heard Pam in her class, it's going to save you, not only you as an agent, but your company, so Keller Williams, if you do have a dispute or something that goes into court or arbitration. If they come and audit, those documents are all going to be there, and you know that those are the documents that have to be there because Anita is very on top of it, and she has trained me on everything that we need. All right. Does anyone have any questions about that? No? Okay. Okay, so what we'll be covering, I kind of already went over this, but we're going to go over the required documents for the listing and buyer side, and I'm only sticking to Illinois because I do not know Missouri. Anita's only the Illinois managing broker, while Jeb Blassingame does the Missouri side. And I do get some of those Missouri contracts over. It's just not a ton, but I know basically that I'm looking for signatures on those. So we're just going to stick to Illinois. And then on some of those documents, we're going to go over what exactly I'm looking for when I approve or if they get returned so that you guys know somewhat of why they're being returned. I do try to put those in the comments when I'm doing command so you're not like, well, what's going on with this? But I think that you'll just have a better understanding and maybe be able to not get them returned. And then there are multiple documents where they are required, but there's some exceptions to them. So we're going to touch on those with certain documents that have that. All right. Okay, so first we're starting off with the listing side. I know that not a ton have listings right away, but you'll get there, and we have full faith that our listings are going to go up this year. We've been pushing that, and I know with the market, it's crazy and kind of difficult to get listings right now. You definitely have more buyers most of the time, but it never hurts to know this side. Okay, so the first thing, a while back, there was some confusion about this. This is the Maris marketing form. And we, at first, Anita had said, hey, this is required on every single listing, but that's not always true anymore. It is actually only required when you have a coming soon or a withheld. If it's active, you don't have to have this one. You can definitely always put it in there. We're never going to say, hey, that's too much in there. But just make sure if it's a coming soon or withheld, you have this filled out and you make sure it is signed at the bottom here. So you're gonna have your seller sign it, and then you're gonna have to sign it as the listing agent. Okay, it's pretty straightforward. This is the only page to it. There's no other pages. And then when your seller is signing it, you just want to go over why. Why are we signing this? It's just because with the coming soon or withheld, it is not going out to everyone right away. Right, Barry? Okay, I just want to make sure.
Correct.
Okay, thank you, Barry. Any questions on that form? No? Good. Okay. So next we have referrals. These are all going to be in your listing. Actually, this is mostly a buyer side, isn't it, Barry? If you're a buyer, you're going to have referrals.
If you're referring, actually, no, it could be either way. If you're receiving a referral from an outside source. Okay. Yeah, if you are receiving a referral from another agent somewhere, it could be either buyer or seller.
Okay, perfect. See, that still confuses me. I don't know everything with this, guys. But I do know what I'm looking for when we get these. So if you have a referral, you have to have both of these filled out. This is going to be filled out and it's going to be signed. There are some documents with the referral that do require Anita's signature. This one, for some reason, doesn't. But she always says to me, if the document has it on there, then she needs, like, if it asks for the managing broker signature, then just make sure she signs it. And she's really good about signing things. You just send it to her and she's pretty prompt on getting those back. And then the W-9 is going to come from the person that is receiving, so we know who to pay. That is right up there with how to get paid. I know Lori goes over it, but doesn't show the forms, so I wanted to show these. It's just filling out this page, and we do need it to be signed down here. So it's simple. Just send it to them and have them filled out and send it back to you. That way we know on your commissions, when you have that outside referral or outside broker, we can enter that into our system and make sure they are paid correctly. Right.
Now, this is for when we get a referral for a client?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So we can pay them.
Yes. Okay.
If you are the referral to the agent, then they need to ask you to fill this out. So if you want to be a step ahead of them, you can do that. We have one that is already filled out that you can pull up on Facebook, actually. It's already signed by Ginger, and then it might all be filled out. But so it's very simple for you guys.
It's just referral outside the office, because otherwise you would do that in advance.
Correct, yes. If it's an agent within our market center, you just add them as an agent on your commissions, which Lori can touch on since she's doing how to get paid next. All right, guys. Any other questions on that, though? Good. Okay. All right. So we have the consent to dual agency, and I know Pam touched on this, and Jennifer, you were talking about this too, and you were absolutely right on the last class. You want to sit down and explain this to your client. It confused me a little bit. I was actually talking to some people this morning, because if you're on the listing side and you're filling out your listing agreement, it should have a space on there where they can signature if they want dual agency. Now, say for some reason they decided they didn't want to dual agency at that time, you can always pull up this form and have them sign this later on. So that's for the listing side. For the buyer side, they also have another form that is on the contract to purchase, where they should be able to, again, initial for that. But if they decide not at that time or they missed it, then they just passed over and didn't initial it, and they don't mind the dual agency, then you can come back to this form. But dual agency, very important. I always highly recommend it. It's never going to hurt you. If you have listings and the buyer side, more money for you. And this is what saves you. This is needed if you have dual agency. Get it signed. I was going to say something else. Goodness gracious. Sorry, pregnancy brain is kicking in. Just make sure it's filled out. It's very easy. Oh, make sure you are explaining what it is to your client, and that it is done, like Jennifer said on the last class, before you even show a house. Anita highly recommends that it needs to be filled out before you even show them the first property. All right.
Kristin, I have a quick question.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when we're on DocuSign, when we're filling out the buyer's agreement before when we meet to consult with them before we've shown them any properties, but you're in DocuSign in opportunities, it automatically auto-populates that an address that you're going to see. Is there a way that we could have that line taken out of auto-populate, out of command? So that we can fill, because this is what I think I see is that so many agents, it looks like they're getting that form signed the day they're showing a property, because you have to get a new one signed with the new address the day you show that property, because you can't go in and change that.
That's a really good question, and I'm not completely sure on that, Sheila. But I will talk to Anita about that, and I'll get back to you and see if we can do anything about that.
Thanks, because I think that's why we're seeing them signed on the day, is because you have to go and make a new one.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense, and I'm gonna write that down. So is that just in DocuSign? You're not having that?
I don't. It's from command. If you go in from opportunities, I haven't done it into .loop from opportunities, so it may be the same thing.
Okay. Well, I will definitely look into that for you, Sheila. Okay.
Thanks.
Absolutely. Okay. Any other questions that I hopefully can answer on this form? No. Good. Okay.
Are you doing your first class?
Yes, I'm doing my first class.
Hey, everybody.
Oh my goodness. That's Rick if you can't see him. Okay, so this one, exclusive right to sell listing agreement. This is a required form. It is 7 pages long. I only have the first and the 7th page up, but you want all of this to be filled out, all of it, as much as you possibly can. And make sure that they are signing the bottom, initialing the bottom of every single page. And that on the last page you can see here, they need to sign it and print their name, and then you will have to sign it, and so will Anita, every time. We always have to have Anita's signature, okay? A lot of times this one does get returned if it doesn't have Anita's. Yes, Barry, what's up?
You cannot put this in the MLS until Anita signs it.
Okay.
When you get a listing, it is technically not a listing until Anita puts her signature on it.
Mhm.
So keep that in mind as you're planning. So when you get it, you get excited, you come home and you start pounding in the MLS. Make sure that your listing agreement gets signed by Anita first.
Absolutely. Yes, this is a very important document. So yeah, you definitely want to make sure this gets in there. If I see it in command and I'm like, and it says listing, I'm automatically looking for this. It's just one of those documents, has to be in there. I did have another screen pulled up. Let's see if I can figure out how to share that different screen, because we are having problems with line 36 on this document. So I want to show that one to you guys. Here we go, maybe.
Unshare, reshare.
Oh, wait, no, I can just do reshare. Hold on. It went somewhere though. Yeah, you might be right. Okay, hold on 1 second, guys. Where is it? There it is. It's up. know. Okay, here we go. There. Okay. So this is just the dot loop form that I have pulled up. It's on page 2. Again, like I said, it is line 36. So it's right here in the commissions tab. And you're going to have this filled out. And up here it says seller agrees to pay broker a commission of. This is line 35. So you know it's usually 5%, 6%, and then with a commission of blank, depending upon the sale. But if a cooperating broker is involved, that broker will be paid. So this number right here, a lot of the times, say this is 5% up here, people will put 2.5%, meaning, it's half of what they're making. But we don't want it to say 2.5 because it's the percentage of total commission. So if this is 5% on line 35 and this is 2.5 down here, it technically needs to read 50%. Because you want it of the total, you want the percentage of total commission of that 5%. It's kind of hard to explain. Does that make sense to everyone? Yeah.
Hey, Kristin, that makes sense. This is Laura, but I do have a question because how do we, I mean, I've done this already. I just picked the closest percent I could, but what if we want to pay them a flat fee, say like $500 and say that's well over, the minimum we're supposed to pay a buyer's agent? Like, how can we put a flat fee in there if possible?
Right. I believe, and Barry, help me out if I'm wrong, with the minimum commission, that would go right here. So if it's just a flat fee, you're going to use the second blank on line 35.
Okay.
That's a great place. That's a great place to put it if you're doing a flat fee.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So we would put in like a percentage
Uh-huh.
that would, okay, I'm trying to think of how to say this, that would like cover our minimum percentage that we're supposed to pay out. And then we would put the flat fee with a $sign in the next box.
Yeah.
Yep, you got it, Laura.
Okay, that helps. Thank you.
Of
Yeah,
course.
that makes it easy and clean.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions about that? That's just something we're seeing. That's a reason that it's getting returned sometimes on this document. If it's not Anita's signature, it's almost always that line 36 that is not correct. And it's an easy fix if it is submitted. You just have to do
A listing amendment.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Pregnancy, a listing amendment, and you would have to put line 36 should read, and then put the percentage. So it's not a hard thing to fix, but you do have to send it to the seller again, and we want to keep that from happening if possible for you guys. Okay. All right. I'm gonna stop sharing and go to my. Where'd it go?
Hey, Kristin.
Yeah.
You're doing great.
Thank you, Barry. Why is it?
Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing. Like if you stumble or bumble, like you still know more than me, at least. I won't speak for everybody else, but you know more than me. So you're not bothering me at all. You're doing great. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Laura. But it's nerve wracking. I don't like to talk, so don't like to publicly speak. All right. I think that was it on that. Okay. So that is basically the listing side of the documents that are required that we expect to see in there, with a few exceptions. I know a lot of you always upload the disclosures with just like the seller and the agent signature, and that's totally fine. We love to see that. It's just not required for that folder on command. You always see the listing, under contract, and then closed folders. We don't have to see those as long as in the under contract we see those disclosures, and I'm going to cover those disclosures on the next set of documents. Okay. All right. So I don't know why that did that. Moving on. Buying documents. So this, we're just going to go over the buying side of the documents. If you don't have the list side, you have the buyer side, right? And this can be a little bit easier because in that consultation folder, you are just going to have this form, the exclusive buyer representation. I know not everyone is using this, but if you talk to Anita, she's going to say this is required. And it is a great form to use because it saves your butt. And it's your client agreeing to work with you and just you, so that if you do all this work and help them and show them houses, they can't just back out and be like, no, I didn't agree to anything. You're not my agent. This is solidifying that you're their agent. And it's a pretty easy form to fill out. Just have them read through it, explain what it is. This one it's without dual agency disclosure. There is a form. I did that on purpose because I already showed you the dual agency, but there is a form that includes the dual agency. So that's going to have the spot for the initials on this form. Okay. So I would recommend using the dual agency, so they can just initial there and you don't have to go back to the other form. But there's times where they're not going to initial that. So, yep, just needs to be filled out. They need to read it through and understand what it is. And the buyer is going to sign over here. And you are going to put your name here. There's always some confusion. And it's not a big deal if it's not your name here. And then by Keller Williams Marquis on this line. And authorized signer is always going to be Anita for the Illinois side. So make sure she signs that, and then they are again signing down here, your buyers. So printing name and signature, and that's just making sure they agree to it. But again, highly recommend this document if you are not using it already. It's gonna completely save you from being basically screwed out of the money that you've earned working with clients. Okay. All right. Moving on. Okay, so here is your contract to purchase. Again, required. Everyone's got to have a contract, right? So I only included some of the pages on this one again. Every page does have to have the seller and the buyer's initials on the bottom. And these are the pages that have basically something else. The other pages are just a lot of, reading. That your clients need to read through for sure. But these are the main things that need to be filled out for your buyers and sellers. So again, you can see the dual agent right here. It's right there for both of them to sign, or initial, I should say. Like we were talking about, it's everywhere. You're always going to see that dual agent. And then seller and buyer on every single page. Sometimes when we are returning these, they're not signed by one side, or once in a while one page is missed. So you just want to make sure they hit every single page. And then another big thing is the address has to be at the top of pages 2 through, I think it's 11 pages. So don't forget that, and the date. And then on this page, on the last page, we need everything as fully as possible to be filled out for your seller and buyer, and then the agent's information. Fill it out as best you can. If you don't have everything, that's okay, but definitely need license number, of course, your name. This honestly helps me a ton, because if I only see, like, I don't always catch if it's a dual, if you're the dual agent in it, and I'm always going back to this to double check.
I don't care what mug. That one's fine.
Sorry,
Thank
what
you so
free?
much.
Okay, I don't think she meant to talk. But yes, fill this portion out as best as you possibly can. If it's awful, wonderful. That is what I'm looking for. And then buyer needs to sign down here. If there is earnest money, you're going to put the amount right here. And then by who it was accepted by, if possible. That's not required, but it does look good. I'm always looking for that. Again, not required. And then seller down here. But they do, with that loop and DocuSign, which I know is most of you guys, that is dated. But if it is not, if it's an actual signature, If it's an actual signature, then we do need this filled out, the date and the time, and if they accept it or reject it. If they, if they do anything but accept it, rejects or counter offers, and then there's going to be another sheet for that. So they buried it, they still sign. So they still sign down here. Sorry. And then just make sure you still get the initials on this last page. A lot of people miss that because they're like, oh, they signed it, but we still do need those initials on the last page. Again, important document. It's got to be there. It's your contract. Anything you want to add, Barry?
No, you're doing fine.
I have a question about the last page. Okay. So you said it's not required, but the earnest money part. So typically my transactions, right? We have a contract to purchase, and then within 3 days, 5 days, 7 days, or whatever, the buyer's supposed to deposit it at the title company. So in those cases, that part is not getting filled out, right?
Right. No, you're fine. If you know the amount that they're going to put down, never hurts to put that there.
Okay. Even if it's on the front page?
Is it on the front page? Where do you put it? Oh, I see it with the earnest money. You don't have to. Again, like I said, this part is not required.
Okay.
It's just something that I look at.
Okay, got it. Yeah, because I was just, to me, and I don't know, maybe I just read it wrong. I always read that like as if, because I guess I've literally never ever done it this way. I've always had people take money to a title company because I'm like, don't give me your money, but because I want them to feel protected. But in any case, blah, blah, blah. So I always read that part on the last page as if I would be taking it as an agent or if someone at the office or something like that. But when it goes to title, I always figured it just stays blank.
Yeah, no, you're fine. A lot of people prefer that. They don't want to be responsible for that money.
Yeah.
We as an office don't usually take earnest money. So
Uh-huh.
no, completely understand that, and it's why we don't require that at all. It's just if it is, I just look for a signature. But yeah, definitely
Okay.
not required.
And then I have one more question. Okay, and I have not had this happen yet, but I could imagine this happens quite a bit. If like a low offer comes in and then the seller's just like, they don't want to accept it, they want to reject it, but they're like irritated about it. They don't want to worry about logging in and signing and stuff. Like, how do we handle that? Because I know it's required, but
Barry might be more his area.
yeah.
There are actually two ways to handle that. You're supposed to reject and the seller sign.
Right.
But one thing I'm going to tell you is there is a acceptance timeline on a contract.
Yeah. Okay.
And if it falls outside that acceptance timeline, then that contract is void.
Okay. Okay. I understand exactly what you're saying.
But the ethical thing would be to have them sign it and send it back so that, because buyer's agents who submit contracts that don't get accepted get really frustrated if they don't get a response back.
Yeah, I've been on that side so many times. I get it. Yeah, I just want to know the offer got presented because a lot of times it feels like the agent's making the decision for the seller.
And the interesting part about this is there is a block where the listing agent accepts and signs accepting the contract from you. And at that point, they have responsibility to present said contract.
Right. Okay. Okay. Got it. So as an agent representing a seller, I am to get the rejected signature if and when at all possible. However, if they refuse, once the contract expires, I'm not held liable for doing anything wrong. The contract is like null and void. So
correct.
I'm just trying to, so I understand it all. Okay. Thank you guys.
And if you just send an email, obviously if it expires and you send an email, something that closes the loop.
Sure. Got it. Just to show that yeah. So something to the buyer's agent where maybe show them where I did receive it and then just send them, hey, my sellers were not willing to sign this, but the understanding is they're rejecting it and blah, blah, blah.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Awesome questions.
And also keeping in mind that at the bottom of page 11 with all of that information for the title company, if you don't have that filled out, you're going to be writing an amendment because it is part of the contract to have the title company information on there. So save yourself having to write an amendment and get that signed by everybody and just make sure you have that filled out at the bottom.
Perfect. Thank you, Sheila. Yeah, like I said, this last page is probably, I mean, it's not the most important, but this is where you're going to fill out the most on this document. It's everything on this page basically needs to be filled out.
Hey, and on the title company, Kristin she's probably talking about 610 through 612 here. The seller gets to choose the title company. So a buyer's agent, if you're the listing agent, is going to call you if you don't have it in the MLS or you've not identified it somehow. They should call you and say, hey, what title company do you want me to send this to? And you need to know that. So you probably want to talk about that with your sellers early on.
Right. Yeah. Call the seller's agent, find out the title company. You can ask if they have contact information, but if I'm the buyer's agent and I call the seller's agent, they just say, we're closing at Abstracts Title in Edwardsville. I say, okay, great, thanks. And then I call Abstracts if I don't already have their information. And I say, hi, this is Sheila Riggs, Keller Williams Marquis. I'm going to be having a closing there. Can I get the contact information for sending you a new order? And then save it in your phone.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay. Anything else? Any questions? Anything else we want to add on this document? This is your contract, so super important, right up there with the listing agreement. Okay. All right, so like we were just talking about, accepts, rejects, or counter offer. So I have the counter offer on this part of the screen. So this is what's going to be filled out if there is a counter offer on that contract. Pretty easy, pretty simple, but you're going to fill out the top with all of that information. And on here, you're going to enter the paragraph number and the line number that needs to be changed on that contract. And then you're going to fill in purchase price is that right? Purchase price will be this, or counter offer of, I'm not exactly sure how it's worded.
What I do, and this is different strokes for different people. I will be totally honest with you guys. What I do is I actually quote the line. If it is paragraph 2, line 36, I simply go back to the sentence that's being countered and I type it in there. Purchase price to be, 155.5. Yeah, and what this is when you're doing counter offers, this means that if you're getting one as a seller, you're countering as a seller. Mark it up at the top, initiated by seller. This is your offer back to the buyer that you are offering, and so if they accept it, you offered it. Don't just correct for the sake of correcting. You're offering.
Yep. And then down here, make sure you put in the expiration. Again, it's kind of just like another contract, as far as I know, where there is another deadline. They have to accept it by a certain time. And then it does need to be signed by both seller and buyer. So just make sure you get those signatures on there, okay? And it can go on, you can use this, I believe I've seen it, you can use it multiple times. So if there's another counter offer, you just put it on, this one, on line 2 on this page. Well, is that correct, Greg? No, you got to use a new one. I'm sorry, because they do have to re-sign it. And then
every counter back and forth is a separate piece of the contract, because the first one would be initiated probably by the seller as a counter offer back to the buyer, and then the second one would be the buyer back to the seller.
Right.
And they would be pitching back and forth for part of the negotiation process on the counter offers.
Right.
And then you want all of
the additional lines would be if they were countering price, earnest money,
home warranty,
like if they were,
etc.
Warranty, like if they were countering multiple things from what the first offer was.
Okay. So you get the deal. I pay attention to signatures and to make sure that the top is filled out on this one. But I do know it is needed if that contract, first of all, was counter offered. So with that, for your reference, I would just upload all of these if there is this needed, and however many times you have to do it, upload them all into command. It's not going to hurt you. We're not going to mind. It's fine. Okay. And then that way they're there for you to reference again later on as well. And then I put these two on here. So the contract to purchase amendment is if anything else on that contract needs to be changed. So you're going to do the same thing, fill it out up here at the top. And then again, you need that paragraph number and that line number. And you're going to put in this little box what needs to be changed. And if there's something else on the contract, use the next one. So what have I seen on this? Can't think one off the top of my head, but any, I don't know. Usually,
I have a question, Kristen.
Yeah.
If you want to think while I ask my question, you
For
can think
sure.
of your other thing. I think Barry will end up answering my question. Like I had a situation where I represented a buyer and they were putting in a cash offer on a property. And the offer was basically not contingent on inspections. And so I don't know if I, wrote the offer well or not, but I wrote it. I believe I put that in the remarks. But then the seller's agent counter offered with the counter offer form, and then they addressed the inspection paragraph and the change on there. So my question is this: should I have written the original offer? How could I have written the original offer to be more clear to keep the counter from coming, or is the way it happened the most efficient way to do that? And I
There's
probably go
Yeah,
ahead.
no, there's things that you could put in the special agreements
Okay.
that you're waiving inspections.
Got it. Which maybe, well,
And-
maybe I just didn't do that.
or-
I can't remember.
Well, the other thing you could do is you could actually submit the inspection form, right? The inspection response form,
Oh,
because you could actually submit that with your contract if you're waiving an inspection. Let's just say that.
got it.
And you would go ahead and fill out the inspection response form and put waived.
That's better. Okay. Yeah, because I was always confused. Can I write something in special agreements that basically counters something else in the agreement somewhere else? Like what supersedes? You know what I'm saying? Like that's been my question before, but you're saying if we write something in special agreements that would supersede whatever else is in the contract?
Well, I think it's going to depend on what you put into counter what's written in the contract.
Okay.
But
Okay.
like I said, if you're waiving an inspection, the easy answer is to do the inspection
Yep.
response form and go ahead and click waived and submit that as part of the contract.
You're right. That does sound way better. Okay, cool. Thank you. Lots to learn. Appreciate it. Thanks.
I didn't even think of an example, but yeah, paragraph number, line number, and if something needs to be changed, this is the sheet that you're going to use. And again, seller and buyer have to sign this. Yes.
Hey, on a contract amendment, make sure anything that changes in that contract has to be done with an amendment. Whether that is someone added to the contract, someone removed from the contract, changing the closing date. I'm working with somebody right now who needs to extend the inspection period because everybody was out of town. Anything that you need to change in that contract has to be on the contract to purchase amendment. And it has to have everybody's signature agreeing that whatever was written, we're changing. And this is the piece of paper that can undo anything that you did in the contract, basically.
Yeah. And it's the same thing, if you know multiple things need to be changed, you can use this. But once it's submitted with that seller and the buyer, you can't go back and use this. It has to be another amendment. So if you have multiple ones of these, it's fine. Upload them to command for us to see, and just make sure that seller and buyer's signature is on there. Okay. Any questions on those? No? Okay. Okay, these are my favorite. So these are the disclosures that are needed. So we're going to start with the real property disclosure. That is 4 pages long. I did only do the first page. But you want this filled out. Sometimes on this one, I haven't lately seen it, but every single one of these needs to be addressed independently. So you want to check mark on one of these lines on every single line. Okay. That is what we do look like. Anita will make exceptions sometimes, but this is for the seller to fill out. These check marks are for the seller to go through. It doesn't take that long. I know it can look a little intimidating, but it's just questions about the property. And then on page 2, you're going to have a little space underneath. If anything is yes or NA, you're supposed to explain why. If it's NA, it is technically required. We do look for that, but if it's NA, like a lot of the one is something with the fireplace, or I'm aware of material defects in the well or well equipment. If that's NA, we get that there's probably not a well on that property. Otherwise, if it is yes for any of these, please explain on that next little section. It's right after, it's on the first part of the second page. Just explain why it's a yes. That they know it and why. Okay. And then on that second page, you're also going to have the seller and the buyer. Sorry, there's a lot of commotion in here. Can everyone still hear me okay? Yeah, okay. Just make sure that the seller and the buyer sign the second page. The third page is all going to be reading material. And then again, on the fourth page, the seller needs to sign. And there is a spot where it asks where it or when it was provided to the buyer. A lot of people just have the buyer initial there, and that's totally fine, because most of the time it's dated on DocuSign or .loop, and that's really all I've been seeing. So if they do sign in person, just make sure, or if they're getting it in person, just make sure they date it, the buyer dates it there. Otherwise, this one has been pretty good. Sometimes the seller's signature is missing on that fourth page. I don't think everyone always sees it, but you guys have been doing a great job with that. Just make sure that is uploaded and put into command. Okay. The next disclosure in the middle, we have the Radon disclosure. That is required on almost every single property. I think the only one is not is if it's still most of the time required, but if on a foreclosure you cannot get the seller to sign it or initial it, then it's just something you can't get. That is really the only exception Anita makes, but make sure that Radon is that the seller, so top portion is the seller. They are initialing on those, and then make sure the buyer initials right here if they have received the copies and the pamphlet. They do need to be given these. So if you don't have those, they are again, you can pull them. I know you can pull them off .loop, but they are also listed on our dashboard as well. Those pamphlets are there for you to print out. Okay.
I have a question about the radon.
Yes, absolutely.
I have a seller who had a radon inspection in August of 2020.
Okay.
And it showed that there was elevated radon.
Mm-hmm.
And now my buyer, I sent all the disclosures to the buyer, and the buyer, she read through all the disclosures, and she's okay with it.
I believe
that's
that's
elevated.
Yeah. And she's not asking for the system to be installed. Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
Nope.
So I think by law that's fine for her to decide as long as she knows about it.
She does. She's been given disclosures, and so I just want to make sure.
Yeah, okay. You're absolutely fine. As long as it has been tested, she has been given the pamphlets, and she decides not to put that system in, that's her, because you're covering with this disclosure that she did know about it.
Barry, this might be a question for you. So should I give the buyer the report of the radon that was done in August?
Form, if you read this form, the form says that you have reports.
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
And it's actually the letter B here that says the seller has provided the purchaser with the most current records. Pertaining to elevated radon. So per this form and by law, you've got to give it to her to show her that reports are available if they were made available to you.
Okay.
And also she can still retest. And you can do ongoing tests yourself. You can buy them for $15 at Menards.
Mhm.
And then it's
Yeah.
about $40 to send them into the state to test if it becomes a concern of hers at any point. But yeah, I mean, as long as you give her
Yeah.
everything.
I don't think she's concerned, but I got to do my due diligence.
Absolutely. That's the right way to think about it, Jennifer. You're covering not only the seller, but yourself as well with that.
Okay.
So yeah, you just want to make sure. So on this right here, the agent acknowledgement, that is for the listing agent. Okay, not the buying agent. They need to initial that. That's just saying that you did inform the seller of the obligations. Okay. And then seller, buyer, and then both agents do sign this one. Okay. A lot of the times we'll have one agent sign it, but not the other. We need both agent signatures on this. Okay. Any other questions? That's been a big one lately, is Radon. Is there any other questions about that one?
And if you're doing dual agency, you're going to sign both blocks. You're
Yeah,
going to
and
sign.
see, that's where I go back to the contract. If I see that it is a dual agency on the purchase, the contract to purchase, I don't require you to sign it both, but it always does help me. So if I don't go back, so if you just want to sign both of those, that's great. But if it's only once, I'm not going to reject it for that. Okay. All right. Okay. We'll move on to the lead-based paint. So this is kind of one of those exception forms. It is required if the house is, or the property is built before 1978. So if you have anything built before 1978, this is required. If not, if it's older or if it's after 1978, then this is not required. I don't have to see it in there. If it is required, these need to be filled out. Again, it's a lot like the Radon. It's the top portion is the seller. Make sure they are initialing and check marking which one. So they have known lead-based paint or there is no knowledge. And then the records and report, just which one again. And then the down here, purchaser, again, there is information pamphlets on the lead-based paints. You can find those the same place on the dashboard. I would say is the easiest place. If you guys can't find those, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I will help you get those. And then line E, we get a lot of problems with lately. They do need to initial no matter what, and they need to check one of these. Make sure one of them is checked because I do have to return it if one of them is not checked. And I've been seeing that a lot lately. I think it's just something that's kind of looked over, but that would have to be sent back to your buyer and it'd have to be checked again. Again, agent initial is the seller or the listing agent. So make sure that is initialed, and then same thing, seller, buyer, and both agents have to sign this one if you require it. Okay.
Hey, Kristin, can I ask a question real quick?
Yeah.
You talked about it had to be sent back and your buyer had to go check it. So when your buyer checks it, are you requiring the initials of anything after the signature? If the buyer does something like check one of those boxes, they need to initial beside it, correct?
I don't know. We have not.
The answer is yeah. The answer is yeah, they do.
I mean, that makes sense because they are changing it.
Right.
So yes, make sure that initial. If they just check mark it and initial it right by it, that's perfect.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Barry. Any questions about any of these disclosures? A lot of times I do have to. This is one of the main things I see. For some reason, they are not uploaded into Command. If you're the buyer side, sometimes you have to initiate it. Sometimes the seller doesn't have them. And I see a lot of people not upload them when that happens because they just don't have access to them. Well, you take the initiative and you get them started. Okay. Otherwise, I think that's about it on those. Okay. Moving on. Inspection response and inspection waiver. So inspection response, if you get inspections done, we need to see the inspection response in there. They need to, the buyers, has either performed the inspections and they're okay and they don't need anything to be repaired. And then you just need the seller down here that seller acknowledges that the buyer is not requiring any repairs. And so you have one buyer signature, one seller signature. You're done. You're good. If the buyer is hitting the second check mark and is asking for repairs, the seller, which Barry is going to disagree with me on this, the seller is going to satisfy either A or B, satisfy the repairs and says what they're doing, or sometimes it is monetary right here, and you'll fill that in. Option C declines. Either way, the seller is going to have to sign. And then down here, if you have repairs being requested, the buyer has to fill this portion out and sign again. Okay. And if it can keep going, if the buyer checks anything besides option 1, then the seller needs to sign again. And what Barry disagrees with is up here on seller, option A, it says that the contingency is resolved. I understand that, but Anita is requiring this portion to be filled out by the buyer. It's showing that the buyer accepts that and is signing one more time. Okay. And sometimes I am seeing that where I do have to send it back because the buyer signature is missing that second time. And I understand that.
Like every time Barry does a contract, it gets sent back.
Yes, I do understand that, but it's just saving your butt again.
No. I get it. I disagree with that whole concept, but yeah. I understand why we're doing it. So. Yeah.
And we know Anita, she's on top of things, and I'm a lot like her. I'm a rule follower, so I'm going to look for that signature down there. Okay. Any questions about that document at all? No. Okay. And then inspection waiver. So if there are inspections, if they decide, hey, we don't need any inspections, then you're going to fill this out. If they decide that they want some inspections, but not all of them, you're again going to fill out the inspection waiver. And you can see on the report type which ones. You can choose multiple ones on this. As far as I know, you don't have to fill out every single, like check one, have them sign it, check another one on a different the same document and have them sign it. It can be all of them that they decided not to do, and then have seller and buyer.
If you do it through DocuSign, it won't let you check more than one.
That's why. Okay, that makes sense.
So there is a workaround with that.
Okay.
Yeah, Barry
just have
told
to save
me.
it as a PDF, and then.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, you can work around it.
Yeah, we've had to figure out some workarounds on these.
Yeah. But I just wanted to let you know that you can't just go into that document and check, 3 things and then send it off to get signed.
That makes sense. I'm not super familiar
with
DocuSign, so.
Yeah. So what I've
possibly,
done,
Kristin, that might be another thing to ask Anita about, if that could be changed. I don't know if that's a DocuSign thing or if that's something we set up.
Yeah,
because it goes through commands.
But I will definitely check.
So what I've done, and someone can tell me if this is not okay, but I've just put in a text box with an X for under the seller's name. Is that okay? I mean, they're still signing it and stuff, but that's the way I worked around it to keep it on one form.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. As long as you're getting them to sign it. Okay, and my main point on these is you have to have one or the other. You're going to either have all of those inspection responses, or you're going to have an inspection waiver, or you're going to have both. But you do have to have, at least one. So just keep that in mind. Okay, I'm going to kind of skip because going over time already. Title commitment. I know Pam mentioned it. It is required. Anita's not necessarily requiring it right now in command, but I see almost everyone upload it. And my main point on that is you just want to make sure you read that. And just like Pam said, make sure you read it, it's right, go through it, upload it to command. If you have it, upload it, okay? That's really all I have on that one. Not a huge thing. We don't get, the document is prepared by the title company. So if you don't get it, ask for it would be my suggestion, okay? And then we have these two, which is personal property. That is just for if there is things that are staying in the house, say like refrigerator, microwave, stuff like that. You just want to list those and make sure you put 0 in the dollar amount and get the seller and buyer to sign those. That make sure that nothing changes, that the seller doesn't take it, when it was supposed to stay, and that the buyer wasn't expecting it. Because if you don't have this, as far as I was told, you could be liable for covering the cost for that buyer. So you don't want that. And just fill this out. It's super easy. Just make sure you have everything on there that stays.
And you will never forget to fill it out once you buy your first refrigerator.
Yes. Oh no.
I'm the guy. Okay. Once you buy that first refrigerator, you'll figure things out.
Right? Even a garbage disposal. I mean, you don't want to have to buy anything.
Yes. So, it doesn't seem like that big of a document, but it is important and it'll save you again. Okay. And again, seller and buyer need to sign that one. And then termination notice, this was just kind of in there for our benefit. If I see this in command, I am going to go, because I help with commissions, I am going to just go in, and if there's a DA already made, I'm going to terminate that DA. So we're not constantly asking, hey, is this still closing? We'll know that it's been terminated, the deal hasn't gone through, and then we cancel the DA and it's not a problem anymore, okay? If the DA isn't created, still good idea to put this in there, okay? It's not required by any means, but it's helpful, okay? All right, so we are finally on the closing documents folder. And there's not a ton on this one, but I do want to touch on what is required for this. So this is really the only document that I had, because the final walkthrough, I don't believe it's required. We're not requiring it. It's always great to have it in there. This surprisingly only has to be signed by the buyer. It does not have to be signed by the seller. So if you're worried about that, go back. Don't be. Just put it in there if you have it. But then the home warranty is not required unless you're getting a kickback from it. If you're getting like a kickback of some kind, upload that into command. I'm not going to know that, so that is on you to get that in there, okay? And then, so the two that are required in this folder are the signed settlement statement. Notice how I underlined signed. I cannot accept it if it is not signed. I will return it. You want to make sure it's after the closing and the title company has sent it to you. Again, with the settlement statement, I was told by Anita, make sure you read that. Make sure everything is correct on that. I know there's been some things where the bonus wasn't included, that I guess transaction coordinator fee sometimes isn't included, and then you're just kind of out, and that's a problem. So you just want to make sure everything is right, okay? The DA, so that comes from your commission. We create that. Me and Lori will create that and upload that once we have your commission and have imported it into our system. So your job with the DA, to get that DA in there, is to just submit your commissions correctly. And Lori is going to help you out with how to do that on how to get paid, which is next. Any questions about that? Any of those? No? Okay. And finally, just some things that Anita wanted me to hit on. She has those folders in command. So you have either listing or consultation, and then you always have your under contract and your closed folder. Do not add any documents that she does not have in there for you to upload something to. If you need to upload another document, there is something below those folders that said add folder or add file. You want those in there, and I can always look at those and approve them if you want me to. But that is a good place for you to put things that are not in her folders if you want to be able to see them. Okay. She just gets a little irked when extra things are in there because it's more things we have to go through. I don't really care. I just kind of go through it and I'm like, okay. But we, you know, those documents that are in there, we don't know a ton about if we're not asking for them. Okay. Also wanted to hit on the MLS sheet. You want to, that is highly recommended to put that in if you're on the listing side. Or actually the buyer side, it doesn't matter. Put it in there because that's going to save your butt. Again, if say something was in there that said could stay and they changed that before you can pull that and put it in there. She says to pull that from MLS the day of the contract, the day that you submit the offer. So that's in there and you know what was said, what stays, anything else with the house. That description doesn't change because the listing side can go in there and change it. We hope not, but Anita said she's seen it. So good idea to do that. I think that's it. Oh, I'm sorry. One more thing. We have in the folders. So you're going to see contract packet and then disclosure packet. I think we also added. So you can either upload them all as one big packet. You have your contract, your disclosures, everything else you need, and that goes in the contract packet, or you can upload them individually into the folders that you see for the individuals. But please don't do both. That means we have to go through all of those documents twice, and that does get a little repetitive. And if everyone does that, it's a lot of time for us. So either do the packets or the individual documents in the folders, in the individual folders. Okay, you'll see that on the under contract and the closing folders. That's all I can think of. Any questions real quick? No? All right, guys, I'm done. I hope that helped you guys. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to email me. Sorry, you're fine. Or call. We're back full time at the office, okay? So I'm always here to help. All right, I'm done. Lori's up
Kristin.
next.
Kristin, thank you so much. That was an outstanding job. Folks, I hope you got something out of that. We're going to take another little break if Lori doesn't mind. And then we'll come on and Lori will cover how to get paid.
Yay.
I think you did great, Kristin. I'm very proud of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.